Welcome to this special DPI program. I'm Stacey Carmichael and I'm joined today by the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, the Honorable Basil Williams, SC. It's a pleasure having you on the program, Minister.
Thank you, Stacey.
Now, you're the chairman of the Standing Committee on Constitutional Reform, and this committee has met like 5 times since being constituted. Could you give us an update on the meeting last Friday and what were some of the outcomes of that particular meeting?
Okay, the last Friday meeting, as you know, it was fixed for midday on Friday. And for the opposition, only Ms. Manichan turned up. But at the time that I was about to begin the meeting, she left. So that the meeting proceeded only with members of the government. Nonetheless, we took care of business in the sense that we had some outstanding matters to determine in relation to the Consultative Commission. And in the earlier one, we decided that the Berbice Bar Association should be added to the commission. 2, that the chairperson and deputy chairperson of the commission should be appointed by the Parliamentary Standing Committee on Appointments. And the third issue was whether there should be an expiry date or a time limit on the work of the commission. And so to make that determination, we adjourned, and we hope to schedule a meeting later this week, as everyone is here.
Thank you, Minister. Now, there has been a lot of talk about constitutional reform and the importance, and this administration promised to move forward with the process. But if we don't have the cooperation of the opposition, how do you see this process moving forward?
Well, it's going to be severely impaired. You must realize, though, it's a total process, so that even if we were to proceed without them, in relation to the type of amendment required to the Constitution, some of those might require, for example, a 2/3 majority. Some might require a referendum, etc. But those requiring 2/3 majority, you will reach a stumbling block in the Parliament. And if they feel that they weren't consulted or they weren't involved, etc. And that's why the work of the committee has been stretched out, because they're now in private practice in opposition, most of the lawyers, and they're finding it difficult to turn up. If that's the main reason, I'm just indicating that. But we don't wish to, they're holding us up. But as I said to you, it doesn't make sense you run ahead, and then when the time comes, we can't get the support on a 2/3 majority vote. So we try to bring them along, and again, we'll invite them later this week, as soon as we see an opening, to hold another meeting to determine the question of an expiry date. It's a lot of work, and so we want to get on with the business. And I must say that there have been previous parliaments and parliaments under the last administration where they had this committee and no work was ever done. At most, they had one meeting really per parliament. So this really, having 5 meetings to date, shows that we are pushing it, and we're trying to ensure that we deliver on constitutional reform.
Okay. Well, only I think it was last week, a little before, the day before the actual meeting, there was an article in the newspaper where the opposition MP, Anil Nandlal, who's also a member of the committee, he was cited as saying that he's unimpressed with the performance of the committee thus far.
Well, I don't know if he could be impressed when he doesn't turn up. He's a no-show, and he's not in a position to make an assessment. And Mr. Nandlal says all kinds of manners of things. But the time comes when he's trapped in Parliament. So when he makes these statements, I'm in a position to respond immediately. And you notice that he ran out of the parliamentary chamber on the last occasion, because he knows most of the time he's speaking falsely, and what they say in your line of work, what they call fake news. And I trust that we were able to dispel all those doubts that he attempted to create in the minds of the Guyanese people on various legal issues. And we believe that he should settle down and make proper representation for the people he represents, and don't try to spread disinformation on these matters. No. We don't have the time to be running behind Mr. Nadalan. I think most of you might be surprised about the nature of the work of the Attorney General. It's not like in the past, the Attorney General Chambers just has the drafting of bills and looking at advising litigation and going to court. You see, it's much wider. And the global community seems to want to repose on Attorneys General a great amount of work and responsibility for the global community in terms of establishing the rule of law. So you have something like the CFATF. I didn't even get to reach the CFATF in my presentation, you know? And so it's a lot of work. And we have the whole anti-corruption tool with that. So we really don't have the time to be running around. We probably have to get some PR person in there.
Okay, AG, before we close out the program, could you remind the Guyanese citizens how important constitutional reform is to the development of the country?
Well, it's important that as you progress, I mean, we had an amendment maybe in or around 1980, and then you had some consequential amendments in or around 2000, 2001. But the Constitution, you know, is a living document. It reflects people's development in a country. And so from time to time, you need to revisit the Constitution to bring it in line with the thinking of the society. And so when you find that some provisions in the Constitution have become irrelevant and are basically a humbug to the nation, then these are things that you need to address. And that's why we are looking to establish and operationalize a law reform commission, for example, to look at all of our laws and try to modernize them and make them relevant to the changing climes in the country. And you know, as you know, we are on the cusp of economic transformation, and so our laws, we're going into new areas of law: oil and gas, environmental, green state, etc. So we actually need an entirely new cadre of lawyers to deal with this new paradigm in Guyana. And you know, under President Granger, we have created capital towns. And that was largely, we also aligned magisterial districts with the regions. So you don't have somebody living in Linden, for example. In the past, they used to have to go to West Demerara to do business at the magisterial district there. A man who was in Region 8 and Region 9, they had to go to Region 2 to deal with matters of bail, etc. And therefore, with these capital towns now, we have established magisterial districts. So people in Region 8 go to the capital town. Region 8, people go to Madhya. In Region 1, they go to Mabaruma. In Region 9, they go to Letem. And in that way, what you're doing is creating now an entirely new arrangement for access to justice, which would require more lawyers, because it means that people could actually practice up in these places. And in the past, they sat once every 3 months. Now they could sit daily. You know, so there is a vast improvement, and we don't have enough lawyers really coming out to deal with this situation right now as it is, as it's opening up.
Thank you very much, AG, and thank you so much for joining us on the program. Thank you, viewers, for joining us. Goodbye.